So, we just came from Tope's top 8 match. Got to interact and make sure everything goes smoothly, you know. And here we are in the top 4. As we know, Tope is on Warrior, Warlock, and Hunter. Fizdarth has queued up with Paladin. Let's see what the rest of his lineup is. Looks like Paladin, Warrior, and Warlock. So the one difference is the Hunter versus the Paladin. And we are starting out with Tope's Zoo against what looks to be a normal mid-range sort of control Paladin from Fizdarth. Typically classified more as mid-range nowadays. Back in the old days with nothing but heals and Wild Pyromancer's double qualities, but more than likely we're going to see more of an emphasis on minions and board control from Fizdarth. Unfortunately, he doesn't have the Shielded Minibot, which would be the best counter right now to the Flame Imp. Barring, of course, the Knife Juggler or the Iron Beak Owl that could come down from Tope. But Fizdarth doesn't know about that, so he's just going to answer with the 1/1 Silverhand Recruit as opposed to his Knife Juggler. Since he has the Muster for Battle next turn, he can finish off the Flame Imp if he so chooses. Tope does have a very good start, though. I think a Haunted Creeper's about to come down. Doesn't bother clearing. He knows it. Muster for Battle is one of Fizdarth's only ways to finish off the Flame Imp, and if he can make Fizdarth take 6 damage from this Flame Imp, it's going to be a solid use of his mana on turn 1.
Reporting for duty.
The score is back up here. Sea Giant looks like it could be coming down. I mean, more than likely the Knife Juggler is going to be clearing off some things, but he doesn't really have a way to trigger the Knife Juggler that looks to be appealing. He doesn't really want to abusive, obviously, because he's probably just going to attack one of the 1/1s. So it's sort of a really awkward Knife Juggler. At the same time, a buff spell and Quartermaster both loom.
Get in there, fight, maggot!
Decides to make the most out of his buff and hit him in the face. He's already been pretty aggressive with the Flame Imp, so it makes sense. Could see Blessing of Kings here, could see Knife Juggler into a 1/1 recruit. Probably just going to take down the Knife Juggler with a 5/5 recruit. Definitely a reasonable board clear. Fizdarth feeling comfortable enough in his life total to where he wants to keep the board presence and sacrifice 2 more points of health to kill the abusive with his weapon. Tope has an owl if he wants to owl to 5/2. Sludge Belcher pretty strong. That Quartermaster didn't look to be a great play, since all of the 1/1s except for the silenced one have been killed. But Sludge Belcher really easily contests what's going on, and I don't think Tope's going to want to play this Doomguard. He might not be able to play the Sea Giant if the 1/1 crashes with the 2/1. Or, you know, even he kills with the weapon. Still 1 man off. Could see Tap Imp Gang Balls, but then the Sludge Belcher lives for a turn. And that could give Fizdarth the edge in momentum here.
My shield for Argus! To arms, men!
So we're seeing the Quartermaster now. It's reasonable, the 1/1 stays alive. It's not as powerful as a Quartermaster with 3/1/1s, but it's still the most powerful play in his hand. As long as he can maintain the board pressure and like develop a Dr. Boom on a relatively clear board, it should be fine. The Sea Giant's probably the best play that Tope can come up with. It still is really countered by that Big Game Hunter, of course. There's only a couple things Big Game Hunter hits in the Warlock Zoo deck. It's like that, Mal'Ganis, and Dr. Boom. So I don't think Fizdarth's going to have a problem just dumping the Big Game Hunter here. Assuming the Sea Giant's actually what happens. We could see like a tap Imp Gang Boss, but not in love with that. Quality pickup for Fizdarth. He could just... Well, I think now he'll probably just burn the BGH and use the equality later if a Mal'Ganis does happen to come up. He's a few turns away from it, and there's no Void Caller on the board, so I don't think it's a big dilemma here. Alright, so we see it ping the right thing. Let's see if the second knife does its job. Knives were on point, doesn't even have to sacrifice some health or waste some damage. I think Paladin basically has this one locked up. Doomguard's not really helping the situation, it can only kill a minion here. It's actually game on board with the Knife Juggler pings that could occur next turn. And even if it wasn't, Al's gone, no way to answer Tyrion. No way to answer Zoo in the hand. I mean, no way to answer Dr. Boom in Zoo.
Who dares summon me? Get in there and fight, maggot!
Out of time.
He gives him the well played.
Put your faith in the light.
Yeah, Fizdarth's just gonna be safe here. Clear the board. Go down to 15. Impossible to top deck in the next two cards. 15 damage. Pass to Tyrion. Tap to say, tap or no tap. Double Implosion is not gonna help Tope. He's gonna go down in game one. Fizdarth's gonna take it with Paladin. Paladin actually being one of the classes we haven't seen at all yet in this tournament. We also haven't seen, well, in the feature matches, we haven't seen Rogue, Paladin, Shaman. We did see Priest, though. We haven't seen Druid. It's probably the most surprising one of the four. All of them are very playable tournament classes. Even Shaman's been popularized by, you know, Phone Tap at ESL and others. But I haven't seen any Druid. That's like usually one of the main classes, especially because almost everyone has brought Warrior. In fact, everyone we've seen in a feature match has brought Warrior. Wait, no, I lied. Yeah, Candy Cane did not bring Warrior. But he also lost, so there may be a trend there somewhere. With so many Warriors, might be. And everyone's running Control, it appears, except for the one Patron we've seen. Because they're trying to get the edge on the Patron decks. So the natural progression there is for people to run Druid to get the edge on the Warrior Control decks. But not so in this tournament, which has its benefits. At least we haven't had to cast any Druid mirror matches. Those are always really fun until the mulligans finish, and then the game is kind of over if someone has Wild Growth and Innervate and the other person does not. But for the most part, we're seeing some pretty interactive games, and I am appreciative of that. So let's see here. Now that the Paladin's gone, let's see. Fizdarth has Warrior and Warlock. Tope has Warrior, Warlock, and Hunter. It's not the most diverse series of decks coming up, but as always, many different forms those classes could take. And they're taking a while queuing up, so they could be thinking about their matchups and the possibilities. Or just flipping dice, or flipping coins and rolling dice. Looks like we're headed into game 2.
Gul'dan versus Garrosh. Victory or death! Your soul shall be mine!
Tope is on Warlock, but he has switched, as is possible in this Conquest variation. If you lose with a class and you still have to play the class, you can switch to a different deck of the same class if you have it in your collection. He's chosen to go to handlock. Possibly a smart decision, now that he has to deal with Warlock and Warrior, but the Paladin is gone. Paladin is a pretty bad matchup for the handlock. Warrior is going to have a very, very tough time dealing with this handlock deck, especially since it runs Acidic Swamp Ooze, which he is rightfully keeping. I would say that's correct. He doesn't actually know if this is Patron or Control. Against Patron, it's especially important to steal those secondary abilities of the Despite triggers. Denying the Whirlwind effect, a lot of combo potential. This is Control Warrior, though, as has been the trend in recent matches. So all Tope needs to do is life tap and find a threat.
Job done.
I love reading the chat 10 minutes late. What is this? Exactly what the title says. This is Hearthstone. Truer words have never been spoken. And if I mislead at any time, like I said before, I apologize. I'm on the other side of the world from these players, so I'm on 2 hours of sleep and an energy drink. Started this at 4 AM. Armorsmith comes down. Fizdarth's hand, surprisingly, well, not surprisingly, but one of the weakest we've seen against handlock from a Control Warrior. Unfortunately for Tope, he also doesn't have any threats, so we're dealing with two kind of suboptimal hands that could develop into a very slow and drawn-out game. Chat spam Resident Sleeper. And this is just very awkward for Tope here. Sitting at 9 cards, no play. Nothing he wants to do, not even an Ancient Watcher to just plop down there and taunt up later. Of course, now Fizdarth, if he wants to make a reasonable play, he has to... I mean, he could play Despite, attack the face, and pretend he's a Patron player, but we're not going to do that, I don't think. We're probably just going to coin into Sludge Belcher. Double Molten Giant. This hand would be amazing against a Hunter, I would say. It still lacks a little bit of removal, but he would have just probably kept maybe Dark Bomb in the opener. But he's seeing his Taunt Givers, he's seeing his Sludge Belchers, Acidic Swamp Ooze, Double Molten. Loatheb is a solid card to like bridge the gap between the past turn and hopefully future threats, but if it's cleared this turn, and then Tope can't capitalize on that momentum with like a future threat, like if you can't top deck a Twilight Drake or a Mountain Giant rather, then I don't know. We might actually see our first instance this tournament of a Control Warrior beating a handlock player. This one's actually teched out with Acidic Swamp Ooze too. So it's not what I would put my money on, but it's very possible. For all the removal Fizdarth doesn't have, Tope doesn't have threats to go along with it, and Fizdarth does have the Brawl just in case they are drawn. It's not always the prettiest solution, but it's very effective. Alright, so we have a Dr. Boom. It's not going to be answered by a BGH this game. Or maybe it will, but not currently in the hand. Might we see an Acidic Swamp Ooze to steal this Fiery War X? No. Sludge Belcher is just a more efficient use of the turn. Sure, he probably would have played Ooze if he could play it along with the Belcher, but nothing to go along with it except for a very, very mediocre Dark Bomb. It just doesn't need to happen right now. I mean, the best Fizdarth can really reasonably do this turn is clear a Sludge Belcher.
I wonder.
It's an interesting time for Acolyte. My instinct would just be to say Shield Maiden or something. Acolyte is pretty good against the slime, though. While it does die to Dark Bomb, that prevents Tope from playing the Dr. Boom. Boombots could just give the Acolyte far too much value. Not trying to clear with the slime still in the way. Acolyte's relatively protected. However, with the Mountain Giant draw, Tope gains the ability to play the Mountain Giant, play removal, and even like taunt up or life tap in the midst of all that. It's a pretty heavy turn. Especially considering Fizdarth does not have the BGH. Even if he did, it would only get rid of this one threat when the Dr. Boom is following up. Tope's finally finding his threats. I'm not sure what the benchmark is for handlock, like how long it needs to not see threats for Control Warrior to be able to win. But my gut tells me that it just kind of never needs to see threats at all. And we found one finally. So Fizdarth could be in a little bit of a rough spot, but he does have the boom to play of his own. Seems like potentially the best play. Emperor Thorison is always strong, but it is too easily contested with what's already on the board. Also not quite an efficient use of mana this turn. Then again, Tope does have his own BGH. So while I say Boom looks better, if I was Fizdarth, as a bystander, obviously Boom is much weaker. Not that either are particularly great. Wow, what a draw. He needed a threat to play alongside this big game hunter. If he wants to do it like that, he could also still be worried about Brawl a little bit. But like, if he can Dr. Boom after the Brawl won't hurt that much. He may clear the Armor Smith or some bombs. A bomb. Not sure how much I like playing big game before that if it was going to happen. She's going to go face here. Armor Smith is the smarter one to kill either way. We see the double Brawl from Fizdarth, very popular recently in tournaments. For situations such as this and Zoo, basically good against all the Warlock decks that can assemble giant boards of either small guys or large guys. Alright, well the Brawl didn't really go in his favor, but at least the bomb sort of did, almost. Fortunately, Fizdarth lacks the mana required to Deathbite this turn. It's kinda brutal. We could see Tope just simply Dr. Boom after a tap here. See how scared he is of the second Brawl, or if that even comes to light. Shield Slam fits along nicely with that Shield Maiden. Not gonna be the play this turn. So he's hoping the Dr. Boom itself doesn't live. He can deal with anything else. Didn't really go his way. Fizdarth's gotta be like, wow. 1 in 4 for me not to be able to clear the board this turn. Now that both Brawls are gone, Tope can just sort of go in. He doesn't have to worry about Brawl. It's Warrior, so there's no like mass AoE like Shadow Flame to be worried about. There's really no more punishment for Tope to not just play everything threatening he has. Dr. Boom's going to deal a ton of damage this turn. Emperor and Drake, a solid combination of cards. Perfect mana utilization. Excuse me. As it turns out, speaking gets harder the more you do it. Yeah, there's just too much going on now. With no Brawls left, I don't see Warrior pulling out of this. He can kill a thing. Shadow Flame just in case. Acidic Swampoo's waiting for that Deathbite to come down and try to set up a Grommash lethal play. Also many Molten Giants, heals, taunts, basically everything. Yeah, I'd have to say this would be a Molten and Sun Fury play. With no Brawl left to contest it. I mean, you might as well.
Shields up.
Just in case of a BGH not taunting up the 8-8. Smart. Also, in case the taunts, you know, just happen to die, do a lot of damage. 8-8 does the most on board, so you want to keep it alive. 2 deal the face damage because I'm pretty sure that will seal it. Let's see what can happen here. There's another shield slam, but doesn't look like enough armor to make use of it. A Sludge Belcher is not going to hold off this onslaught.
What now?
And the cards like Emperor, Grommash, Ysera just don't do anything here. Ysera really powerful in these like late game control battles, but if you don't have the tempo or the board, and it's not going to be able to hold anything off, then it's really not going to do anything worthwhile. No one has had time to play it so far in these Warrior versus Handlock mirrors. It's always matches. It's always been like a situation where the Handlock is just pressuring constantly. So this is sort of the beauty of the deck switching format in the Conquest. I'm not sure how much I like the format in general for new players, but for a tournament like this, you can see the benefits of like having multiple decks and knowing which matchups you're going to face and how that can benefit. Zoo definitely would have had a harder time against Warrior, let's say. Probably could still have won, of course, but Handlock tech with Acidic Swamp Ooze that didn't even need to be played, and it's just too much. Even when it draws suboptimally at the beginning like we saw, the matchup is very tilted.
Versus Garrosh.
Victory or death! Let the hunt begin.
So Tope is back on his mid-range hunter, it looks like. We can see the Shredder in the Lothab. Fizdarth. Warrior yet again. Looks to probably be still Warrior control. Not a great matchup for Fizdarth here. Keeping the Shredder with the coin. I like it, it's just a very powerful card against the Warrior. Very sticky, hard for weapons to deal with. Fizdarth doesn't even actually have a weapon currently. And Tope does get to draw the 2-mana card. That's very important. It bridges the gap here. Keeping the Shredder is risky because if he didn't actually get a play, would have been a very weak sequence of turns. Fizdarth's hand gets a ton better with that War Axe draw though. The Cruel Taskmaster can answer the Web Spinner right now if he wants, or he can just play the Armor Smith and do the same thing effectively. Knife Juggler comes down next turn most likely, answered with the War Axe. After that, the Corner to Shredder could be a little bit problematic for the War Axe, but by that time Fizdarth will have drawn more answers probably. Armor Smith versus Cruel is kind of hard. I would say Armor Smith's better because Cruel has more versatility later. Armor Smith just trades favorably with only a few things in Hunter mid-range. You see the Web Spinners, so you assume there aren't many 1-toughness minions except for the Web Spinner and like the pups or snakes that could come out of cards, but it's probably best to get the trading out now. Of course, saving Armor Smith for like a massive Whirlwind where you get to gain about 8 armor a turn or something ridiculous is also pretty valuable. Either way, both strong openings here. I think Tope to pull ahead will need to draw into some high mains. Alright, this is pretty interesting. He's just going to take out the Armor Smith right now and not develop his board. That makes the Axe kind of a worse play. We might just see a shield block to cycle here. Well, I guess if he does, Knife Juggler. Alright, this is not going to go as exactly as Tope plans here. Unfortunately for him. He has to know War Axe is a possibility, though. Anyway, like I was saying, we've seen the Shredder keep in the opener with the coin. And I subscribe to the mindset that many people have that keeping high main in the opening hand when you have a solid turn 1 and turn 2 play, or even a turn 2, turn 3 play, like a decent curve in the beginning. If you keep a high main against what you know is a control warrior, it can often pay off and just win you the game. Because are half the cards in your deck really worse than knowing you have a turn 6 or turn 5 high main with the coin? Generally, it's worth it. In the matchup, it's that good against. So I can see why keeping Shredder is also same mindset. It's going to be playable. Just need to draw something to lead up to it. So we're just going to see Fizdarth potentially pop these. See if he wants to Cruel.
Speak to me.
So he feels solid about this Acolyte. If he wants to, well, Abusive plus Animal Companion would be the dream, but I don't think this particular mid-range hunter runs an Abusive Sergeant. Quick Shot's obviously the safest answer. Unfortunately, it doesn't let Tope further develop his board. Animal Companion into Taunt might be pretty good. It's a risky play, though. Huffer would have been okay, too. Would have probably just got Crueled, though, on the next turn. This is safe, it's conservative, and we do have a Gazrilla. It's not quite a high main, but if for some reason it lives for multiple turns, it can win the game. Or get BGH'd, which is unfortunate.
Back to work.
So we're seeing a Cruel here. Knife Juggler, Animal Companion. Could allow for an easy kill on the 2-2. Are we just going with the Shredder, though? We are indeed going with the Shredder here. See, if he jugglered Animal Companion and pinged the 2-2, it would have been great. But if he hadn't pinged the 2-2 and he got Huffer, would have been a little bit too easy to kill a Huffer. Sludge Belcher seems like a pretty giant problem right now. Spoke too soon. This isn't a horrible Unleash. Could be Unleash, could be Animal Companion. I feel like Unleash is better. It could just ping them both. Crocodile takes care of the slime. Hit him in the face for a little bit. Not a worthwhile brawl at all, so I'm pretty sure Dr. Boom is going to come down here. Gazrilla's going to answer it. But of course, in a Boombot could just increase its attack by a lot, and Big Game Hunter it. Looks like Fizdarth has all the answers he needs at the moment. Barring some high main draws, I think Tope's in a lot of trouble here. Alright, we have an answer for the Dr. Boom. He really wants to play that Godzilla. I know he does. Because every time I get a lock-up spinner, I'm like, I hope this has some value. And it doesn't just die right away. But like, he has to know. He hasn't seen that much removal. There's still Executes left. BGH. Potentially a mistake of not attacking with what he was going to attack with first. To the face. He was going to like Knife Juggler the face, kill Command, and Hound the 7/7, then use the Croc to kill a Boombot. But either way, it might have been some misdamage there, because I don't think Knife Juggler was going to trade either way, so probably best to attack the face there if he was going to do that at all. He still has a way to kill a Boom, though. If this other Boombot kills Minion, he might be out of a board, but Despite's going to effectively do the same thing anyway. Tope running out of steam, hoping this high main can, not the high main, the Godzilla. This is where, high main would be so much better than Godzilla, but Web Spinner will be Web Spinner. Better than an Angry Chicken. By a lot. 23 life is going to be more than a little tough to work through. Gazelle is going to be swiftly answered by this Despite to increase the attack, and then BGH. Still holding off on it. He wants to bait some more removal out. Yeah, honestly, unless... Alright, so he's not just gonna like raw play the BGH. Even then, he still has Execute. He has a lot of removal. So, to be completely honest, I can't see a way Tope can cope. Third rhyme of the day with Tope's name. Really proud of that. Freezing Trap not going to be especially strong here. Just going to take care of a Boombot for a fraction of a turn. Or actually, probably the entire turn, because I feel like Ysera is just going to come down ASAP to get some Dream cards and seal the deal. 20-some life left. It's really hard to come back from that kind of advantage. Now, if Fizdarth didn't have any removal, like he didn't have BGH, Execute, or Brawl, I would say there's a tiny chance that Godzilla could just carry this. Like, oh, maybe it'll just somehow increase its own attack 3 times in a turn, or maybe even twice, and win the game right there, but... I think about the coolest thing it'll do this game is give us a little animation with the gong. Yep. I feel like this is just, this is just what's happening. The old BGH. We're waiting for Kibler to watch this match after it's recorded and write another article about how Big Game Hunter killed the fun of Gazrilla. Which is kind of fair. We had no fun with that card this game. Looks like this is actually a game because Dream can bounce the taunt. Despite comes down for exact lethal. Looks like Fizdarth is gonna eke out ahead in this match so far. As long as he sees that, you know, 11 plus 4 is 15. Alright, so Fizdarth, excuse me, only has to win with Warlock against the Warrior and Hunter of Tope, if I'm correct in my matchup analysis. Someone commented 10 minutes ago, 25 Brawls, 5 Sylvanas. Seems like it would beat almost everything. But except you're always leaving one thing, so you're always getting attacked by one thing a turn. So, in fact, it might actually be impossible to win with that deck. I'm not entirely sure. It does beg the question of if you could run as many cards as you want, of any card, what the best deck would be in the game. Does 30 Leper Gnomes have a counter?
Versus Gul'dan.
Your soul shall be mine. Let the hunt begin.
We are again seeing Hunter from Tope. Same build. Fizdarth, as I mentioned, has to win with Warlock. Doesn't look like typical hand lock. Actually, we haven't seen Malagos lock yet, so I'm really excited if this is what's happening. Deck's super interesting and fun to watch. It could just be like a Zoo deck with Kazan Mystic. I didn't see what the cards were before the mulligan, so I'm not sure if it's Zoo or not. I don't think he would have kept what he kept if it was Zoo.
Job's done.
I'm fairly certain this is Probably Malagos. Or some other sort of mid-range demon deck.
Get in there and fight, maggot!
Using Abusive to contest things that could possibly come out this turn. Leper Gnome does come out even though it's not mana efficient because he doesn't want to sacrifice the Knife Juggler to an Abusive Sergeant. Doesn't seem great. This could actually be like a Zoo deck that drew very slowly. Not entirely sure. There's a Void Terror though. Usually seen predominantly in Zoo. Imp Gang Boss on a clear board. Definitely what you want to be doing against a Hunter deck. No clear answer to it. So I guess it's just Bow the FaceTime. Taunting it. Oh, I guess he doesn't have 4 mana yet because he coined into it. Yeah, and he can't really play Void Terror because it would negate the Imp Gang Boss's effect. He's kind of lucky that he drew that taunt. I suppose it'll just eat the last charge of the bow. But it just gives him something to play this turn. It's not horrible. It doesn't look like Tope has any more answer this turn than he did last turn to the Imp Gang Boss. Card is just very scary. If you're like religious about playing around the 1/1 imps, it can make your plays pretty horrible. So sometimes you just have to let them get them and just pray you draw Unleash the Hounds or something like that. He already has Explosive Trap, so it's not like that big of a deal. I'm surprised that it is Zoo though, with the way he mulliganed. Suppose he thought that like Kazan Mystic was just too good to ship in this matchup. Fair enough. Deciding to just silence that right away. Alright, so we'll see how good Tope is at top decking Unleash the Hounds. Would have been great after the 2/4 was silenced. His entire hand is just removal and a Knife Juggler. If he summons the Knife Juggler, Fizdarth is just going to test by attacking one of the 1/1s into it, so I guess he has to, yeah. For a second, Spectator Mode didn't catch up and I thought he might have passed without hero powering, but Hunter players know the value of a hero power.
The light does not discriminate.
And of course the Kazan Mystic is just also going to happen. Fizdarth getting very far ahead. Yeah, without an Unleash the Hounds that turn, how can one reasonably expect to beat that board? I suppose you can kill some things. A thing? Yeah. Actually, it's only a little bit off having lethal next turn, but don't think it's going to be possible. Not enough time. Fizdarth has enough in his hand to just win the game.
Well played.
Little unfortunate draws there from Tope, but sometimes that's how it goes. Fizdarth's going to ride Doomguard to a Game 4 victory, take the match, and make the finals this tournament. We will return as soon as I find out who his opponent is. We're back to cast that match. See you soon, guys.